Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about Donald Trump's sentence in the New York case, which went forward. So, the Supreme Court yesterday, by a 5-4 vote, declined to put the brakes on the sentencing as Trump had requested. To my mind, it's good that happened, but that there were 4 votes, the 3 uber conservatives, and then joined by Justice Kavanaugh, who in big cases normally tries to be with Chief Justice Roberts, who rarely parts company from the others, but did here, basically, as I see it, saw that the actual stakes for the nation, or you could say the Republican Party, were small, and it was really about Trump personally. To my mind, it's really disheartening that 4 members of the Supreme Court, including Kavanaugh, would have voted to give Trump a stay of the proceedings. His arguments were poor, and I think it doesn't augur well for what the Supreme Court is going to be like during Trump's tenure, that 4 already were with him. However, of course, it's a very good bottom line, because had the court actually intervened here and wiped it all off and basically kept Trump's actual legal criminal record clean, even as his factual record is a crime spree of all kinds of crimes of exceptional gravity. The fact that at least one, the least serious one, goes forward and he enters office as the only felon president, guilty of 34 felonies, that really, really matters. So, glass half full, half empty. Full that it happened, empty that 4 of them actually were ready to give him a stay for no good reason at all. And one other little detail in that glass half empty is that Justice Alito took a phone call from him while this was pending just this week. Obviously, it was an unnecessary phone call. Trump was seeking Alito's assurance that a clerk of Alito's was solid, notwithstanding having worked for Bill Barr. That's something that needn't have been done this week. And even if there was any issue, that's what letters of reference are for. Really, really improper that Alito took that call and spoke with them, obviously meant to influence and say, hey, here I am. And then he stayed in the case and voted for Trump. A scandal. And to me suggests this a little bit of a triple bank shot, but he's so thumbing his nose at the challenges to his ethical behavior, his unethical behavior. Makes me think, maybe he's going to resign, and fairly soon, to get, he doesn't seem very happy in the job anyway, but to let Trump early on get a successor, a young Alito, if you can imagine that, in place, because it was really, really improper for him to do. Anyway, 5-4, it goes forward, and so now that brought us to this morning. It could have been a real circus. Trump showed up from Mar-a-Lago and participated by Zoom, and everyone was there, and Trump was very, very, very far from the normally well-behaved defendant in whose fate the court holds in the court's hands. But here, really, the court didn't hold it. The fact that Mayor Chun had already said this is going to be an unconditional discharge, which is basically you walk totally free, gave Trump a certain leverage. If he had really wanted to make a big scene, Mayor Chun would have been in a very tough spot because he didn't have any leverage over him, and he didn't want to, put him in jail or whatever because he's about to take office. And the Supreme Court, in one of the two reasons it gave for denying relief, was unconditional discharge. It's a nothing anyway, so no worries. Anyway, Trump might have been expected for this reason to really go into histrionics, but when I thought about it, it made sense to me because I attended the trial, and he was glum and grim, but he kept his mouth zipped basically, and then went out and made total histrionics to the press and raised money off it, etc. So he was of peace with that. In fact, everybody was basically restrained both in temper and even in content. What I mean by that, everyone could have said a lot more to really rub Trump's face in it, and Trump could have said a lot more and just repeated the same thing to rail against Mayor Chun and the court. Instead, people said their piece mainly in subdued courtly tones, and that was it. So they came out pretty much on time. Trump was on video with his lawyer, who's going to be the deputy attorney general. The prosecutor, as prosecutors do here, stated the basic offense and the gravity of the crime and the importance that Trump be punished. While the prosecutor did that, Trump repeatedly shook his head no and glowered and, grimaced, etc. But he had done that a few times at trial, nothing more than that. Then it came to Trump to state his piece. He said he was treated unfairly. He made it sound like it was all a political trial. And then he made his main claim, which is sort of his claim out there, and it's going to continue to be his claim, and it's crazy. And yet, as a practical matter, you can see why he thinks it settles the day and is definitive. He basically said the election wiped out the conviction, the election and the vote, the narrow vote of the American public to restore him to the presidency constituted, in some sense, certainly not legal, an exoneration of these and every other charge. Then he sat down. Mayor Chun was quiet, calm, but forceful, including on this point that Trump had just raised, and he drew a very clear distinction between the presidency, which gives certain powers to and immunities to the person who is in it, and the person of Donald Trump, who is basically a common criminal. He said, it was an extraordinary situation in many ways, but ordinary in many ways. And that is the very sort of moral I had drawn from the trial at the time. I called it, I really showered it with praise, not because of the result, but because during the maelstrom that Trump created, it was able to just go on the way a normal trial is supposed to, and the jury system worked, and the 12 persons, voted on the evidence, etc. Anyway, Mayor Chun basically made that point. He didn't tell Trump what a terrible felon he was, but he said, this is important. It's the system we have, and Donald Trump, the person, is guilty, even if in these extraordinary circumstances, once he accedes to the office of the presidency, that office will cloak him with certain advantages. So that was the basic deal. And then he said, Mr. Trump, I wish you Godspeed in your discharge of your duties in the second term. And then that was it. It was over, leaving this huge question to be answered going forward about both for the country now, today, and for history. Does it matter? How much does it matter that we are going to have a president for the first time in our history who's a felon and guilty of 34 felonies? Will that be something that the people don't care about and overlook? Will they actually take Trump's view that in fact it was all bogus. And when I say the people, of course, we are two nations, as always, a tale of two nations. But how it will play now, including in MAGA land, which, by the way, was apoplectic at Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett for not voting to give Trump relief. So that continues to play out. But how it will play in MAGA land and how it will play in history. Is it a sort of nothing burger, which he now wants it to be, although question whether he tries to appeal, which he can. They wouldn't have been able themselves to pursue the appeal, but if Trump wants to, he can. So will he keep fighting it and try to still get a clean slate? But most importantly, how does it play now and in history and even in mid-range as we move, say, to midterm elections and the like? But that's the story. Supreme Court, skin of our teeth, denies him relief. Sentencing takes place fairly routinely, but in pretty subdued terms. Everyone makes their point, but just once, and doesn't, make any grandstanding of it. And now that's it. Felon President elect Trump will take his oath of office, and we'll see what his criminal record means. Some people have said, oh, by the way, certain countries don't permit felons to travel there. There might be those legal repercussions. I have to think there won't be, but the real question is how important the actual conviction, designation as a felon, this is going to be now, in the next 2 years, and in the landscape of history, which is in many ways what we're all really having to focus on going forward. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.